Okay, so good morning everyone. So now we discuss to the first corpus or the first book of Aristotle, which is the Organon. So first of all, it is very foundational to discuss this book or this write-up of Aristotle because it opens up to the idea of logic and epistemology. And in this book, it is composed of 6 chapters outlined to give us the idea not only logic and metaphysics and epistemology, but it brings up how Aristotle thinks or how his line of thinking is. So this is organon. So basically, when we go further in this discussion, it opens up to the very basic things like the syllogism, like the categories and others. Nonetheless, this is foundational for Aristotle's philosophy to discover and to identify and to discuss this one. So before anything else, before we jump up to the main purpose, it is good to identify the very basic and fundamental context. Why, who, and what is this writing all about? So in other words, we are going to discuss first, because this is the first topic of Aristotle, we first discuss who Aristotle is, what's the historical context, and last but not the least, what's the philosophical line of thought that is present at that time. That we can say and discover that Aristotle had this very important word, the organon. So to begin with, let us discuss the introduction or the context, which is to be given to us by Abani.
No. Morning. So, let me explain to you the life of Aristotle. In the early life and education, born in 304 BC in Skyros, a Greek colony on the Thrace coast. Father Nicomachus was the court physician to Macedonian king Amyntas. After his father's death, Aristotle was sent to Athens at 17 to study at the academy under Plato. Spent 20 years at the academy, initially as a student of Plato, later lecturing particularly on rhetoric. Career and philosophical journey. He left the academy after Plato's death in 347 BCE due to the philosophical disagreements. Plato's nephew Sisyphus became the successor. Now, what happens here is that because Aristotle was the student of Plato, according to the commentaries, he became the heretic to the teachings of Plato. Then he was being exiled to the not in their Greek countries. However, moved to Atarneos and Assos in Mysia, accepting an invitation from his friend Hermias, where he also married Hermias' niece Hippias. After Hermias' defeat, relocated to Mytilene and then was invited to tutor Alexander the Great by Philip of Macedonia. Establishment of the Lyceum and the final years. Returned to Athens after completing his duties to Alexander the Great, established his own school, the Lyceum. Known for walking while lecturing, his followers were called Peripatetics. Dedicated 30 years to teaching and writing, providing private lectures in the morning and public ones in the evening. Died in 352 BCE in Chalcis due to stomach issues. Now, historical context. Aristotle's era, a pivotal movement in ancient Greece history, coincided with the decline of the city-state system and featured Athens as a leading city-state. This period was characterized by slave labor and the exclusion of women from political life, yet it fostered an early form of democracy among its male citizens. Despite these inequities, the Greek city-states were hotbeds of intellectual and cultural development, making significant contributions to fields such as political theory, philosophy, mathematics, drama, art, and architecture. thereby laying the foundation for much of Western civilization. Now, the question is, how had Aristotle arrived at his sophisticated concepts or his philosophy? It's because Greek people are actually wealthy, and they have the leisure of time to philosophize extensively by their leisure of time. Kaya ang kuan kanang ang sa Greek nation kay man kung kanang kuan ka Greek people kuan lang kay kanang philosophers ay kuan lang kay kanang kuan sila kanang philosophers sila kay ay merely studying na sa philosophy kay ang ginaturing nila nga slaves kay katong kuan outside the country nga nagpuyo kumalang trabaho daw nila slaves kay labati sa trabaho ilaha ang Greek people kay kuan lang study lang ng philosophy in other realms of education. The societal setup allowed male citizens significant leisure time, enabling a culture of intellectual pursuit of philosophical inquiry. In this fertile intellectual environment, figures like Aristotle thrived, benefiting from the public and private forums dedicated to exploration, teaching, and debate. Aristotle works across various domains reflects the societal orientation of intellectual discourse and leisure, showcasing the depth of inquiry possible in the Greek Tunis. Aristotle's legacy is deeply intertwined with Greek city-state societal norms and structures and eras achievements, while also acknowledging the social injustices that underpin it. The reliance on slavery and the exclusion of women are pivotal for understanding the context within which the ancient Greeks' intellectual advancement occurred. So it was the time of also of Aristotle that the liberation of the female came into being.
Okay, so it is good to ground with that idea of Aristotle's background, not only of the life, but also especially on the societal context that is present. So as we can see and we acknowledge during the report, there is that very big vast difference of first, the life of Aristotle with Plato. So we have discussed Plato in our past lessons, and we acknowledge very first that Plato's life differs significantly with Aristotle, and with this, it has a big effect on the context and philosophy that emerges in Aristotle's mind. So also, not only with the life, but also with the society. As we can see, the significance of the city-states greatly impacts on how the thinking and philosophy works at that time. So having that leisure in time in philosophy, that makes Aristotle and other thinkers of the ancient period become more fluent and have that leisure, have that abundance in time in thinking and philosophizing. Hence, we can see in this philosophical context that Aristotle primarily differs with Plato due to its influence on his father, which is a physician. And his father is the court physician. In other terms, the father of Aristotle is the, may we say, a prominent physician at the time that made him very empirical on his thinking. So with that, Aristotle departed from his teacher's idealism. So at this point of time, Plato became more critical in thinking, not only on subscribing to the idealism of Plato, but he wants to incorporate knowledge, he wants to incorporate philosophy with the empirical things. In other terms, he wants to see or to use the observable things. And that, the notion of Aristotle marked a strong reliance on the observable and tangible aspects of the world. So it becomes more reasonable. Hence, here comes out the very famous book which we are going to discuss, the Organon. Because we are jumping out from the idealism of Plato, we need to become more critical on understanding empirical things. Thus, to bridge the metaphysical idea, Organon gives us the methods on how we can reach to the universal truths amidst of departing from the idealism. So this is why the very first discussion of Aristotle basically is the organon. Because this is how Aristotle defines and fortifies his discussion, especially on the empirical or the empiricism he wants to present. Furthermore, the organon represents a comprehensive effort to give us the category, especially of understanding, not only giving proof, but most especially to identify beings, or this time, substance for Aristotle. Furthermore, in the philosophical context, we can say that although this idea of Aristotle's philosophy is very ancient, but as we have discussed in the past in our different lessons in philosophy, Aristotle greatly influenced great thinkers. So Aristotle influenced like the great philosopher St. Thomas Aquinas and other more because of this philosophical context and background that he had. And thus, we go further to discuss now the overview or the major themes of this book. Basically, this book in the English translation, there are almost 500 pages. So it's very lengthy and very long. Nonetheless, we can simply divide it into two discussions to give us the fundamental idea of this book. So even though there are 6 themes of this book, but we can simplify these themes into 2 things, which are first of all, we talk about the syllogism, basically the logic, and second, we talk about the category, which is more on the epistemology and the metaphysics of Aristotle. So if we go deeper onto the original text with the 6 themes, first of all, the first part of the book, Organon, talks about the categories. So I know Father Mark Silada, our ancient philosophy teacher, gives us and brings us the idea of the categories. So we all know that 10 different categories of Plato. So we have substance, quality, quantity, reaction play, relation place, time, position, state, action, and affection. So all of this we have discussed. And it is good to know why Plato started with this one. Because it lays the ground, first of all, that we can identify truths in the empirical world. Because of these observable categories, we can say that truth may be or from the empirical world. Furthermore, after that very significant discussion of metaphysics or epistemology of Aristotle, he jumps off onto the interpretation. So the second part of this 6 part corpus, which is the organon, it deals now with the relationship of language and logic, exploring of the word sentence can represent reality. On other words, because we are focusing on the reality, the physical reality, the second part of the organon talks about how our language, our words, connects to the reality. It's not because this is his philosophy, basically the first thing or the groundings of the field of language, how it relates. Or other words, how the particular and the universal differs. And that's very significant in logic, we all know that. So that is on interpretation. Third, we have this prior analytics, where this is his first analysis that gives us or gives way to the theory of syllogism. So here, the very famous syllogism of our logic is first discussed by Aristotle. So this is the third part of his book. And on the furthermore, to go deeper to the analysis in the first part, after the theory of syllogism, it is the theory of demonstration and scientific knowledge. Hence, we can say that it's very practical on this arrangement of knowledge of Aristotle. Why? Because first, identifying that we can understand reality, then that in reality we can get the universal truth, how we interpret it. Then we can prove that through the process of syllogism, or getting the reason or getting the reality out of the discussion through syllogism. And the next part is how this scientific, this concept of logic brings us to scientific knowledge. So murag makita na ito nga, murag linear, masabtan na ito ang line of thought sa organon. And on the second to the last part, the topics of explores the dialectic reasoning or method of argumentation, which Aristotle wants us to bring us that to acquire knowledge, we need to have as very reasonable thinking. So we are not only subscribing to realities because it is well presented, but we subscribe to knowledge because there is argument that can define or prove the reality. So muna siya nasa topics. And last but not the least, because of that, the very famous in front of them, the sophists. So at the last parts of the organon, not only Plato is very very angry to the sophists, but also Aristotle wants to debunk the idea of the sophists. So after, because the topic describes us on the, if you remember in the fifth part, it tells us the method of argumentation. Hence, it is not pala on how sophists are thinking, not on the relative thing, but to put a reality, to grasp the reality, we need to be more critical. And through that, we can refute the sophistry or the sophist way of logic or thinking, because it's very it talks about fallacy because of the relativistic principles of the sophists. So again, we can discuss the book Organon into 6 themes. However, to give us more comprehensive knowledge and to give us the analysis, we can depart from discussing those 6. But we can summarize it with 2 major things, which I have discussed earlier. So we can discuss about the syllogism, a key tool to logic. And the second part, we explore on the knowledge of existence, the knowledge and existence, which talks about the category. So that's our basic and simplified understanding of this organ. To start with, let's jump to the syllogism and on its synopsis. So this is the background of syllogism.
Now, we discuss the syllogism. So, Aristotle's foundational contributions to logic, especially his formulation of the syllogism, mark a pivotal point in the history of philosophy as detailed in his work Prior Analytics. So, the syllogism stands as a structured logical argument that unfolds in 3 stages, incorporating 3 distinct terms to arrive at a conclusion based on 2 given premises. Aristotle's definition of syllogisms as discourse in which certain things being stated, something other than what is stated follows of necessary from their being, so encapsulates the essence of logical deduction. So syllogism is the logical argument, then wherein knowledge derived through facts and experience. So in the law of logic, sa atong discussion, so to make an argument or syllogism is it comprise the major premise, minor premise, and the conclusion. Then an illustrative example of this would be the argument. So the major premise, example, all humans are mortal. Then the minor premise, Socrates is a human, therefore Socrates is mortal. An exemplary syllogism might argue that since all humans are mortal and Socrates is a human, it is necessary follows that Socrates is mortal. So this example highlights the syllogism in the three terms. So the Socrates, so human and immortal, organizing into a coherent argument where the premises, if true, incontrovertibly lead to the conclusion. The efficacy of a syllogism, according to Aristotle, hinges on its structure, and he provides a framework to assess the validity of such arguments. So, di ba, in our example, all human are mortal is the major premise. So, with mortal, so muna siya po ang major term because it predicates the conclusion. Then, second, Socrates is the minor term as the subject of both the minor premise and the conclusion, while human serve as the middle term, linking the two premises without appearing in the conclusion. Delving deeper, Aristotle distinguishes between particulars and universals. So, particulars refers to specific entities like Socrates, and universals to general categories like human or mortal. So, remember mo atong i-divide of four na universal affirmative, universal negative, particular affirmative, o particular negative. So, dire na siya dapat ma-discuss. This distinction is vital for formulating categorical sentences, the building blocks of syllogistic logic. Aristotle identifies four types of categorical sentences based on the relationship between subject and predicate, each necessitating qualifiers such as every, some, or no. So, Aristotle's exploration of categorical sentences yields four fundamental structures. So, all X is Y. So, the universal, then some X is not Y. Universal plus 1, negative. So, no X is Y. And finally, some X is Y. So, he posits that all statements can be reformulated into these categories, thereby fitting to syllogism and affirming the syllogism as the backbone of reasoning. So, lastly, on interpretation, so it was the other work of Aristotle. So, Aristotle extends his inquiry to modal logic, scrutinizing sentences imbued with notions of possibility and necessity. Although his findings in this area are less definitive, they spotlight the nuanced distinction between the determinacy of past events and the potential indeterminacy of the future events. So, Aristotle appears to challenge the notion of an immutable future, suggesting that the prediction about the future events cannot be unequivocally true or false, thus opening a dialogue on the nature of temporal existence and the scope of logical analysis. So, in his work on interpretation, he highlights the possibility and necessity. So the possible existence and there is an being that necessary to also to exist. So that would be all my part.
So once again, good morning, brothers. So let's jump up to another idea of Aristotle, which is analysis. So Aristotle's pioneering work in developing the field of logic stands as a monumental achievement in intellectual history. Remarkably, he constructed the foundational principles of logic from the ground up, a feat that remained largely unsurpassed until the advent of modern mathematical logic in the late 19th century. While Aristotle delved into the intricacies of rational argumentation, stripping away the layers of rhetoric, flourish, ambiguity, and complexity to reveal the underlying truth. According to Aristotle, through meticulous analysis, any argument could be reconstructed into simple, clear statements, making its validity or lack thereof immediately apparent. So, meaning to say that, as General Abastidas said earlier, that the logic of Aristotle is one of the great works through the history of logic, particularly the syllogism of Aristotle. So, the central to Aristotle logic are the two principles: the division of sentences into subjects and predicates, and the breakdown of every sentence into one or more categorical sentences. He identified four distinct types of categorical sentences, categorized by the relationship between the subject and predicate. This method of classification allows for a systematic differentiation among sentence types. Aristotle posited that, in essence, the diversity of sentence in human communication can be reduced to these categorical forms, either singly or in combination, often embellished to obscure their fundamental simplicity. So just like, for example, the simple categorical of Aristotle during our subject in logic by Father Father Bringas, that the subject and predicate is being connected through the intermediacy of the middle term. So the modern mathematical logic, however, diverges from Aristotelian logic by challenging the primacy of the subject and predicate structure in logical analysis. Bertrand Russell, for example, critic using the example of the present king of France, Isbold, illustrates the limitations of Aristotle framework, suggesting that certain expressions do not neatly fit into subject-predicate analysis without leading to logical inconsistencies. Instead, modern logicians prefer to dissect sentence into smaller constituent statements, enabling a clearer evaluation of their truthfulness without the pitfalls of assuming existence implied by certain subjects. So that is the reason why Aristotle used the three types of the major premise, minor premise, and the conclusion in order to kita-kita niya. Then, although Aristotle's theory of syllogism is an effective tool for determining valid relationship between premises and conclusions, his aim was to provide an instrument of scientific demonstration. For this reason, again, he emphasized the relation between logic and metaphysics, between our way of knowing and what things are and how they behave. That is, he thought that words and propositions are linked together because the thing that language mirrors are also linked together. Accordingly, Aristotle recognized that it is entirely possible to employ the syllogism consistently without necessarily arriving at scientific truth. So Aristotle distinguished the dialectical reasoning, heuristic or continuous reasoning, and demonstrative reasoning in order to categorize the type of syllogism which Aristotle emphasized. So, if we then ask the additional questions of whether and how we can know that the first principles are true, Aristotle answers that we know they are true simply because our minds working in certain fact would recognize or see their truth. These first principles are not in turn demonstrated. If it were necessary to demonstrate every premise, this would involve an infinite regress, since each prior premise would also have to be proved, in which case the enterprise of knowledge could never be get started. Aristotle, referring again to the first principle, says that not all knowledge is demonstrative. On the contrary, knowledge of the immediate premise is independent of demonstration. In other words, as human being, we know already what is truth and what is false. So,
That's 1 minute.
So we jump off the categories of Aristotle. So traditionally, categories interpreted as introduction to Aristotelian work. So they are divided into 10 categories. So these categories were developed by Aristotle in his work. Categories to help classify and organize different kinds of things that exist in the world. So
first category is substance, which in this context means what is something, essentially. So substance is a primary sort of categories of Aristotle. Is example human or rock. Second is quality, is quantity, relation, location, time, position, work, done, doing, undergoing. So these 10 category provide a comprehensive framework for understanding the different aspects of reality and diverse ways in which entities can be classified, analyzed, and interpreted according to Aristotle's classical system. Aristotle categorized of being into 10 distinct categories, which with substance of being primary and the course of a fundamental aspect of his philosophy. So the distinct, non-intelligible nature of being, various forms, substance in Aristotle framework is unique because it can exist independently, whereas qualities and other categories of being inherently depend on substance for being existence. So the slides 2, so Aristotle proposed the 10 categories for understanding being things we can talk about. So substance, example is a table, is the most basic, it exists independently. Other categories is depend on substance exists. These show different flavors of being. We can make a blank statements about everything that exists. This distinction between independent and dependent existence is the key of Aristotle philosophy. So, in elaborating on the knowledge of hierarchical structure, particularly through the lens of syllogism in the posterior analytics, Aristotle posits that the true knowledge transcends mere repetition of facts. Instead, it necessitates understanding of the reason underlying those facts, achievable through the demonstration or the logical deduction of fact as syllogism conclusion. So, despite their foundational status, Aristotle contends that these principles do not constitute knowledge in a traditional sense, as they are indemonstrable through reasoning or premises. Instead, their understanding comes from the intuitive grasp of universal according to the experience. So, Aristotle believed that knowledge goes beyond memorizing facts. We need to understand why they true, like he used syllogism or logical puzzle to show this. So the good answer comes from the chain of reason, not just random facts, but even syllogism need a solid point. So these are universal truths like gravity that we just grasp to the experience, not a logic. So the hierarchical organization extends beyond knowledge to the objects of knowledge themselves, where Aristotle sees definition as the process of distinguishing a subject by its genus and differential. This methodological approach to definition allows to discernment of an entity essence by identifying its broad category and its unique characteristics. That set is apart from other members of the category. So Aristotle 5 predicate subject relationship including genius, differential, unique properties, definition, or encompassing the essence of the subject, and residence, non-essential characteristics. So Aristotle organized things we know like animals in a hierarchy. to define something like a dog, we figure out the behavior group, like mammals and special features. So this helps find the essence of something, what makes it a dog. Then not all details are essential. It is called excellent. Then, why Aristotle ideal of knowledge involves tracing concept back to their first principle. Practical discourse often operates on a more pragmatic level as explored in his works, topics, and sophistical repetition. In argumentation, the focus shift of establishing truths from the first principle to finding common ground in the mutually accepted premises. This strategy forms a basis of effective debate, aiming to draw a conclusion contrary to an opponent stance from agreed upon premises. So, Aristotle like finding ultimate truths, but new everyday arguments need a shortcut. In some debates, we need to prove everything that from scratch. We find common ground, agree upon facts, and argue from various to be. It's like using a map, everyone agrees to reach surpassing destination. And that's it.
Okay, so to put analysis on the second topic, which is the category, we now delve on to the idea that Aristotle's exploration of logic, as per prior to the discussion of categories, gives us the realities that connects us to language and the topic of the physical world. And this relationship posits that linguistic structure we employ not only reflect and directly corresponding to the various forms of being, but constitutes the reality. Again, we identify as sweeper analysis, as I have said earlier, that Aristotle wants us to give us the idea that the physical world can be understood. So departing from the idealism of Plato, he wants to put primacy of the physical world through this identification of the categories. So we all know that categories, the 10 categories are very empirical, except the first one, the substance. But the other 9 are very empirical. Hence, what we can speak of, or other words, what we can understand physically, brings us to the reality that our language or our identification of the reality is very connected to the truth. Hence, Aristotle, with this dual identification, gives us the idea that even though we depart from that idealism of Aristotle, truth is very present in the real world through these categories. Furthermore, the categories, these 10 categories, in Aristotle's metaphysics gives us a significance of the 10 which I have said earlier. And these categories are the predicate in that syllogism we are talking about earlier. If you notice, we first discussed logic. Why? Because logic gives us the way of thinking, of proving, and putting arguments, right? And in this category, we can prove and define reality because these categories now are the predicate of that which we use in our syllogism. In other words, predicates means that these are the qualities that is present on what we are talking on. So, categories, as we have said earlier, Aristotle puts emphasis on the definition of the identified phenomena. So, this identified phenomena is the physical world that we are talking all about. So, to put it into perspective, Aristotle wants us to bring to the assertion that the reality outside our self or the physical world are very tangible and gives us and lead us to the truth. And hence, we can use it to identify this epistemology, which is basically through its logic. On other words, so to put conclusion to this book, Organon, first and foremost, we identify that the first topic, which is the logic, is very, I may say, ancient. Why? Because with the premises, the major, the minor premise, and the conclusion, we can see at this moment in the 21st century that it's very not brings us to certitude or to the truth, because what is the identification of truth using only syllogism? So as we all know, many other branches of logic has already emerged at our time. We have analytics, for example, and that is very comprehensive, as we can see. So, kung ato masabtan karon ang logic, dili na words, kundi na figures, symbols. But in Aristotle's time, logic was used primarily through language. And we cannot deny the fact that if we use it today, it's more likely less the reality. Nonetheless, looking, because this is the conclusion part, looking at the time of Aristotle, at the time of Plato or ancient time, this way of thinking is very comprehensive, and indeed it brings to the truth. Yes, premises are just given and conclusions are derived from what is observable, but in reality, even though it's so ancient, until now, this way of thinking, this way of reasoning is still existing at the present time. Especially if we go into courts, debates, and other fields of argumentation and putting to proving thoughts and ideas, this premises or this syllogism of Aristotle is very useful. And indeed, as for now, we can say that as we go in this, in this new world where technology is present, we can easily prove things, right? But this syllogism marks to the reality of existence, especially on understanding how Aristotle in his time is thinking. Furthermore, we can say that also in how Aristotle identifies his epistemology, especially with the categories, we can say that it is very old or ancient or very not applicable at this time. However, we can say that on the identification of Aristotle of substance, it stands as a cornerstone of all the empirical realities that we understand at present. Yes, substance may be not on the term right now because we use now essence, we use now existence, but this substance of the being is the cornerstone. It is the foundation on how we identify the existence of reality. And this reality is very, I can say, very important because this is what constitutes our study. This is what we constitute in our philosophical endeavor. Second to the last point, syllogism also gives us the clarity of truth. Yes, truth may be different to identify at the present, but this logical process of syllogism can be used easily for us and we can identify what is true. Because if we set things into premise and brings to conclusion, we can identify if we use our empirical capabilities or our way of thinking through what we see and perceive, we can easily derive to the truth with no further and deep explanations. So it's how very important this syllogism of Aristotle. So again, Organon may be existing ancient time, but how Aristotle meticulously identifies logic, identifies epistemology, and identifies this metaphysics brings us a foundational notion which until now philosophers at contemporary time are using. So basically, the application I have said earlier, and the organon is not only talks about this, what we call that, talks about logic, talks about epistemology, but also we can infer or we can conclude that this organon also gives us idea of the scientific knowledge, which at present time, we all know that in ancient times, science and philosophy are in the same branch, but now it was been deduced and differentiated. So this is how, or the product of organon is the deduction or the limit or specification, I mean, term of the body of knowledge that is present at this contemporary time. So I hope you learned something from this organon, and it may be a logical discussion and not only epistemological, but it is the foundation of Aristotle's work that we can infer and we can use until now. So thank you so much and goodbye.
Last.